Her heart hammered against her ribs as the elevator doors slid open onto her office floor. She clutched her travel mug, still half full of lukewarm coffee, and forced a bright smile for the receptionist before stepping into the hallway. The company's open plan workspace was buzzing with the usual Monday morning chatter, some complaining about a weekend that was too short, others hastily scanning their emails. Everything seemed ordinary, yet for Mandy, an indescribable tension coiled in the pit of her stomach. She reached her cubicle and set down her mug, her mind drifting for a moment to the subtle changes she'd noticed in her husband Eric over the past few months. He'd grown quieter, less communicative. She had chalked it up to the lingering stress of his last deployment to Afghanistan or some residual trauma from his earlier tours in Iraq. Deep down, however, she sensed another reason hiding behind his vacant eyes and slow, measured words. Barely 15 minutes later, as she scrolled through spreadsheets she was supposed to be finalizing for an upcoming meeting, Mandy heard a distinct commotion. People gasped, chairs scraped against the floor, and then a sudden hush fell over the office. She looked up to see an older man, sharply dressed in a charcoal gray suit, walking deliberately toward her cubicle. His shoes clicked with a sinister rhythm on the polished floor. Several colleagues turned to watch him pass, curiosity etched on their faces. He stopped a few feet from Mandy's desk and announced, loud enough for the entire department to hear, "Amanda Black." Mandy's heart seized. There was something in his voice, formal, resolute, and tinged with regret. Instantly, she knew this wasn't about a client meeting or an external project. Her mouth went dry as she slowly rose from her chair. "Yes, I'm Amanda," she replied, her voice faltering as she glanced toward her best friend, Kit, who sat just 2 cubicles away. The man cleared his throat and inclined his head in what might have been a small gesture of sympathy. Then he pulled a stack of official-looking documents from his briefcase. "Amanda Black," he said gravely, "you have been served." He spoke each word with deliberate clarity, ensuring every person nearby could hear. Time seemed to freeze. Mandy felt dizzy, as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the building. A stunned silence settled over the large, open workspace. Usually, her colleagues were chatting, typing, or talking on the phone, but now they were completely still. Every single eye had turned to her. The man placed the thick envelope on her desk. Mandy wanted to speak, to scream, to cry, to protest, but her tongue felt impossibly heavy. Then, with a swift, theatrical gesture, the man reached into the side pocket of his briefcase and produced what looked like a standard-sized photograph. To her horror, he held it up for everyone to see. Her own face stared back at her from the photo, disheveled and intimately close with another man, Sean Thompson, the sales director from the third floor. They were clearly in a hotel room. Mandy's cheeks burned with mortification. She could hear stifled gasps and murmurs behind her. Some onlookers craned their necks, while others looked away, embarrassed. But the lawyer, if that's what he was, continued to pivot the photo as if to ensure every spectator got a clear view. "Divorce papers," he stated coldly, tapping the envelope with 2 fingers. He shifted his gaze, scanning the crowd that had formed. "Proof," he added, brandishing more photos in his hand. "I believe This settles the matter of Mrs. Black's infidelity. Mandy's vision blurred. She felt her legs tremble, her knees threatening to buckle. A furious storm of shame, anger, and fear bloomed in her chest. She managed to whisper his name, a broken sound. She reached out a shaky hand to try and snatch the photos from his grasp, but the man calmly pulled them back, tucking them away in his briefcase. "It's all quite conclusive," he said with detachment, turning to address the mortified audience. "My client regrets that it has come to this, but Mrs. Black left him no choice." A strangled sob caught in Mandy's throat. She sank into her office chair with a soft whimper, clutching the envelope as if it were a live grenade. After a moment, she rose shakily, then collapsed to her knees beside her desk, tears staining her cheeks. She heard the first wave of hushed whispers ripple behind her like a tide. Everyone was talking. The sociable, attractive blonde was now the center of the biggest scandal their branch had ever seen. Kit rushed over, her heels clicking on the laminate flooring. She knelt beside Mandy and put a comforting arm around her shoulders. "Mandy," she whispered, her voice thick with empathy. "Come on, let's get you out of here, away from all these eyes." But Mandy was frozen, her vacant gaze fixed on the stark words on the envelope. Petition for dissolution of marriage. A tear splashed onto the document. He did this so publicly. She couldn't finish the sentence. The humiliation radiated through her body like a fever. The lawyer snapped his briefcase shut. "You have been officially notified, Mrs. Black. The photographs remain in my possession, but rest assured, they have been shared where necessary," he announced. Then, with impeccable posture and a curt nod, he turned and walked through the sea of onlookers, who parted to let him pass. The second he disappeared through the main doors, the murmuring erupted. Kit tugged gently on Mandy's arm. "Honey, please get up. Everyone is staring." Mandy let out a ragged breath and tried to stand, but her knees buckled and gave out again. In that instant, something inside her broke. All the guilt and stress she had been suppressing for months, the self-loathing, the fear of Eric finding out, it all poured out in a single, keening sob. She collapsed completely this time, her knees hitting the carpeted floor. A small gasp went through the observers. Some had eyes wide with pity, while others wore expressions of lurid fascination. "Stop staring," Kit hissed at them before kneeling down again. She looped Mandy's arm over her shoulder and hauled her to her feet. "We're going to the conference room. Come on." One or two people tried to approach, but Kit waved them away. She guided Mandy down the aisle, one unsteady step at a time, until they reached the glass-walled conference room at the far end of the floor. Kit closed the blinds on the window that faced the main workspace and let out a shaky sigh as she helped Mandy into a chair. Mandy felt the lump in her throat swell. He showed everyone the picture," she managed to articulate. "He actually held it up. Everyone, Kit. Everyone saw it." Kit's eyes burned with protective anger. "That's despicable. I had no idea he would do something so extreme." She glanced at the envelope in Mandy's hand. "Did Eric mention anything before this? Any sign he would do something so theatrical?" Mandy tried to speak, but a sob escaped instead. She could only shake her head. Another wave of humiliation and grief washed over her as she remembered the night before. Eric had barely spoken to her. After dinner, he had locked himself in his study with a laptop. She had assumed he was looking for new job opportunities or finalizing a plan to leave the military. Now, it was clear He had been orchestrating this final act of betrayal. For several minutes, Kit just held Mandy as she cried. Behind the blinds, a steady stream of colleagues walked past, trying to catch a glimpse or exchange theories in hushed tone. Some were genuinely sorry. Others, having seen the photograph, felt she got what she deserved. It was an emotional maze that threatened to swallow Mandy whole. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Mr. Simon Samuel, the vice president and head of their division, walked in. A tall, older man with impeccably parted silver hair, he was flanked by the imposing John Davis from Human Resources and Anna Prescott, the pragmatic office manager who was also Mandy's direct supervisor. Their faces were grim. Mandy's stomach knotted at the sight of them. "Ms. Black," Samuel said, ignoring Kit except for a brief nod. "We have a very serious situation on our hands." Mandy clutched the envelope to her chest. I I know he had the pictures. I He's threatening to sue the company," John Davis interrupted, crossing his arms. His normally ruddy face was turning a shade of crimson. "He claims we knowingly allowed an affair to take place between you and Mr. Sean Thompson, violating multiple codes of conduct. He has mentioned potential legal action if we do not handle this." Mandy's gaze flickered to Anna Prescott, who looked both furious and humiliated. "I can't believe I'm even in here dealing with this." Anna's words were sharp. "This sort of thing in our offices. We pride ourselves on our professional environment." "Ms. Black, this is unacceptable." Kit squeezed Mandy's hand reassuringly, but said nothing. Mandy swallowed hard. I I made a mistake," she stammered. "It's personal. I never wanted it to affect the company." Samuel raised an eyebrow. "Your husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, doesn't seem to think so. He told us he will handle this matter privately for now, but only if you speak with him and come to an arrangement. Mr. Davis has another meeting scheduled with Sean Thompson after this to get his side of the story. We expect to have more clarity soon." Mandy's cheeks flushed again. She could barely look up from the table. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to say right now." Samuel gave her a stern look. "Go home. Talk to your husband. Then we will determine your future with this organization. Understood?" Unable to form a coherent response, Mandy just nodded. She pushed herself up from the chair, and Kit once again put an arm around her shoulders. As they walked out, every person in the open plan office seemed to freeze and stare. Mandy did her best to keep her eyes fixed on the exit, ignoring the swirl of judgmental and prying looks. When they reached the parking garage, Mandy was trembling uncontrollably. She stopped by her dark SUV, fumbling for her keys, tears slipping behind the lenses of her sunglasses. "Oh God, Kit, how am I supposed to face him? He burned every possible bridge. He humiliated me at work. And those pictures, everyone saw them." Kit rubbed her back gently. "I don't know, honey. I wish I had the answers. But if you don't go home and sort this out, your job is on the line. Your whole life is on the line." Mandy's lips tightened, her eyes stinging. Slowly, she got into the SUV. Kit watched as she started the engine and pulled out of the parking spot. Mandy gave a small, desperate wave, then turned onto the road. Little did she know, the worst was yet to come. The drive home was a slow blur, hampered by heavy traffic. Mandy could barely collect her thoughts. The humiliation of having her affair laid bare for all to see battled with a visceral fear of what other damage Eric could inflict. He had always been a man of quiet intensity, but since returning from Afghanistan, he'd become defensive, distant. She had thought it was just the strain of being away. Now she knew he had discovered her infidelities. It was the ultimate betrayal, and it was happening to her. Twice on the highway, she nearly rear-ended the car in front of her because her eyes were clouded with tears. It took over an hour, but finally, Mandy turned onto the street that led to their suburban home. Immediately, she knew something was wrong. A plume of black smoke was coiling into the sky, drifting from the direction of her house. Her heart began to race. As she drew closer, she saw orange flames licking at the windows. Her entire body went rigid with horror. She slammed on the brakes and parked, practically stumbling out of the SUV. A sharp, acrid smell assaulted her nostrils. Several neighbors were standing at a distance, some filming with their phones, others talking frantically. Sirens were audible, growing closer and closer. Mandy stared at the inferno that had once been her cozy, postcard perfect home. "Oh my God! No! No! No!" she screamed. "Randy! Where's Randy? Where's my son?" No one answered immediately. A few neighbors cast sympathetic glances her way. One of them tried to approach, but she recoiled, wild with panic. The lawn was scorched, a single word seared into the blackened grass: cheater. Her knees threatened to give way again at the sight of the horror. A tall man in a baseball cap approached from behind, stepping out of a dented Chevrolet. He held a phone to his ear. "She's here," he said simply, then hung up. Mandy spun around, fear and confusion swirling inside her. "Who are you?" she stammered. But he just gave a short shrug and returned to his car as if his only purpose had been to confirm her arrival. The wail of a fire truck siren tore through the air. Through the smoke, she saw no sign of Eric's pickup truck. Was that a relief or a sign of something worse? She rushed to the side, shouting at a neighbor, "Have you seen Randy? Have you seen my little boy?" Mrs. Johnson, an elderly woman from a few houses down, emerged from the small crowd. "Mandy, my dear, I I saw Eric leave earlier with Randy. He told me not to worry. He said everything was under control." Then the fire started. Mandy's chest tightened with terror, shock, and grief. He set the fire. How could he do this? Another neighbor ran up, phone in hand. "Mandy, the firefighters are here. They said they'll try to save what they can, but it doesn't look good. You need to step back. You're too close. Save." She swallowed a hysterical laugh. Everything was gone. The photos, the memories, Randy's toys. She watched as the flames devoured years of their life together. Her phone vibrated, startling her. She fumbled for it, hoping, praying it was Eric or someone with news of her son. She saw his name on the screen. With trembling hands, she answered. "Where is Randy?" she cried, tears blurring her vision. "Eric, you can do anything you want to me, but please, don't hurt our son." There was a pause before Eric spoke, his voice chillingly calm. "Randy's fine. He's asleep in the back of my rental car right now." She exhaled a ragged breath. "He's safe. Why are you doing this? Why did you burn down our house?" "Why?" Eric repeated. A bitter laugh crackled through the phone. "Because I'm done letting you set the rules, Mandy. You think you can humiliate me? Sleep with Sean while I'm deployed overseas and expect me to keep paying the mortgage on a house where you entertain your lover?" Her stomach plummeted. "Eric, you can't destroy everything we built together. Our memories, Randy's home. You've gone insane." "Insane? No." His voice was flat. "I'm just making a decision. I took what I needed from that place, and I decided to send you a message. So, how do you like your lawn? I'm pretty sure the letters are visible from the sky. Maybe the local news helicopters will get a good shot. She could barely breathe. Her tears were hot, scalding her cheeks. This is monstrous. You're out of control, Eric. I'm begging you, let me see Randy. A heavy silence. I don't think that's a good idea, especially not after I learned about your affair from a private investigator. You should focus on cleaning up your mess, Mandy. Your job might not be waiting for you tomorrow. That's that's unfair. You humiliated me at the office, threatened the whole company with a lawsuit, and now you've burned down our house. Why are you punishing me like this? She pleaded, her voice breaking. There was a soft sound on Eric's end, a whispered sigh. Then his tone turned sharp as a razor. You want to talk about unfair? Is it fair that you spat on our vows? Is it fair that I came home from a war zone to see videos of my wife moaning another man's name in our bedroom? Or that my own son saw you together? No, Mandy. Justice flew out the window the moment you spread your legs for that bastard. The harshness of his words pierced her like a blade. She staggered, fighting to stay upright, the phone clutched in her trembling hand. Eric, please. If you ever loved me, if you still do, let's just talk face to face. At least let me hold our son. Don't take him from me. We have nothing left to say to each other, Eric replied, cold finality in every syllable. As for Randy, he's the only part of this family worth saving. I won't let you poison him the way you poisoned our marriage. Her vision swam with tears as the line went dead. She swayed on her feet, and someone, another neighbor, had to grab her shoulders to steady her. She looked up, blinking away the tears. The sky was thick with gray smoke from the house. She knew that everything in her life, her husband, her family, her illusions, was going up in smoke, piece by piece. Mandy sat on the opposite curb, watching the firefighters extinguish the last licks of flame, devouring her home. Yellow caution tape now blocked the way. Small pockets of smoke still curled from the blackened roof. Her eyes stung from the smoke and the ceaseless flow of tears. She had no idea where Eric had taken Randy. She couldn't imagine how to salvage anything from her life now. Then she heard the rumble of a familiar engine. A sleek, silver sedan pulled up, and Sean Thompson got out. The man who had once seemed so irresistible. The man whose arms had consoled her loneliness at a terrible cost. He saw the devastation, his face twisting in shock. Mandy, he called, rushing to her side. I heard. A coworker told me about the scene at the office. And the news reported a house fire. Are you okay? God, your face. Your clothes are covered in soot. She stared at him for a long moment, torn between relief and anger. Part of her craved comfort. Another part remembered he was partially responsible for the collapse of her marriage. No, Sean, she whispered. I'm not okay. It was Eric. He did this. She gestured to the smoldering ruins. He burned down our home. He has Randy, and I don't know where they are. Sean's eyes widened. He crouched beside her, ignoring the curious stares of the neighbors. Jesus, I knew he was furious, but I didn't think, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Her chest tightened, recalling the humiliating moment the divorce lawyer had brandished, that compromising photo at the office. If she had never let the affair happen, none of this would be happening. But there was no going back now. Her phone blared again. Her hand shook as she answered, half hoping it was Eric. Instead, a voice crackled on the other end. Mandy, it's your father. We saw the local news. Are you all right? Where's Eric? Where's Randy? The sound of her father's voice made her stomach lurch. Eric had revealed something shocking. That it hadn't been her father who cheated on her mother during his Navy service, but the other way around. Everything she had believed for decades had apparently been a lie. Then, she managed, everything's ruined. He took Randy. My house is on fire. I don't know what to do. Don't move. We're on our way, her father said firmly. We'll figure this out, okay? You're not alone. Whatever is going on with Eric, we will help you get Randy back. Mandy nodded, a faint sense of relief washing over her. She ended the call and looked at Sean. You shouldn't be here, she murmured. They hate you more than anything. If they find you near me right now, Sean winced. They already know, he made sure of it. The photos, the wiretaps, everything. He swallowed hard. Let me help you, Mandy. If you need a place to stay, money, anything. I can't just leave you on the street. A flicker of old affection stirred in Mandy, only to be swamped by guilt and the searing memory of the entire office witnessing their compromise. I appreciate the offer, she said, her voice trembling, but I'm not sure going anywhere with you will make things better. He was about to reply when a commotion erupted behind them. A black SUV screeched to a halt, and the passenger door flew open. Eric emerged, disheveled, his eyes burning with rage. Mandy flinched. She scanned the back seat, trying to see if Randy was there. But the rear windows were tinted, obscuring her view. Eric, where is Randy? She cried, rushing toward him, heedless of the caution tape. The firefighters watched the confrontation, but kept their distance. Where is my son? Eric's lip curled into a hateful sneer. Safe, and away from this vermin. His gaze locked onto Sean. Sean bristled, stepping forward. We need to talk. What you're doing is psychotic. Burning down a house, threatening lawsuits. You can't just take your son. Take? Eric spat the word. He's my child. And you? He took a menacing step toward Sean. You have the nerve to show your face here. Sean held up his hands in a placating gesture. I'm just worried about Mandy and the boy. You're crossing lines no one should cross. A mocking laugh escaped Eric's lips. He turned to Mandy, his eyes blazing with malice. And you dare stand here with your lover in front of our still smoldering house and lecture me about crossing lines? The cycle of shame and fury spiked in Mandy. She looked at the devastated remains of their life. You've gone too far, she whispered. This is evil. You humiliated me at my job, threatened me on the phone, and now you've destroyed everything. Please, just let me see Randy. We can sort out the rest later. Eric let out a cold laugh. Oh, we'll sort it out all right. But not today, and certainly not the way you hope. I'm leaving this godforsaken town. We'll find a new place, a new life, far away from you. Randy deserves better than a mother who can't keep her legs closed. Sean stiffened, anger flaring in his eyes. Watch your mouth. Before anyone could react, Eric slapped Sean hard across the face. The impact sent Sean staggering back, nearly losing his footing. Mandy cried out in alarm. Two neighbors rushed forward, trying to de-escalate the burgeoning fight. Sean regained his balance, blood trickling from a split lip. He glared at Eric. You're going to regret that, he growled. Am I? Eric hissed, advancing on Sean. He was slightly shorter, but had the lean, wiry build of a former soldier that hinted at strength and agility. You think you can sleep with another man's wife and get a handshake for it? Mandy threw herself between them, arms outstretched, her heart hammering. Stop it! Both of you, stop this right now! But Eric shoved her aside, sending her stumbling on the uneven ground. She fell to one knee, wincing in pain. Sean took advantage of Eric's distraction. He threw a punch at Eric's jaw, but Eric ducked expertly and countered with a swift kick to Sean's shin, dropping him to his knees. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers as they realized this was no mere argument. Tears blurred Mandy's vision. She had to stop this madness. Eric, she screamed, he's not worth it. Please, you're angry with me, not him. Leave him alone. Sean, clutching his leg, managed to stumble back. Eric stood over him with a look of pure contempt. Get out of here before I break your neck. The tone was so dangerously calm, it froze Mandy's blood. Shaken and furious, Sean struggled to his feet. You're going to pay for this, he spat, sounding more humiliated than injured. He glanced at Mandy, the pain clear in his eyes. Then, as if deciding that retreat was the better option, he limped back to his silver sedan and sped away with a squeal of tires. Eric brushed an imaginary speck of dust from his sleeve. Coward, he muttered. His attention then returned to Mandy, who remained on the ground, tears streaming down her face. The acrid smell of smoke filled the air, a mirror to the suffocating weight in her own chest. She forced herself to her feet, ignoring the sharp pain in her knee. Where is my son? She demanded, her voice trembling. Give him back to me. I am his mother. A cruel smile played on Eric's lips. Randy is in a safe place with someone I trust, so you can forget about just showing up and taking him. I told you already. You lost the right to call yourself his mother. Mandy was about to protest when a wave of nausea twisted her stomach. The stress, the grief, the adrenaline from the confrontation, it all churned inside her. She doubled over, gasping for air as fresh tears welled in her eyes. Then came a sudden, dawning awareness of a different kind. Her symptoms weren't just anxiety and panic. She closed her eyes, trying to regain control. Eric's contemptuous gaze intensified. What is it now? You can't manipulate me with tears and sob stories. That doesn't work on me anymore. She shook her head, swallowing hard. It's not that, she whispered, her voice strangled. She had sworn to keep this to herself until she was certain. But now, backed into a corner, she saw no other way. Eric, there's something you need to know. He crossed his arms, staring at her with a mixture of boredom and anger. Well, spit it out. I have other things to do. The next words came out in a torrent of despair and regret. I'm pregnant. Silence. Even the residual crackle of the fire seemed to hush for a moment. The firefighters were now moving away from the property, the flames mostly extinguished. A few neighbors edged closer, clearly eavesdropping. Eric's eyes narrowed, his brow furrowing in confusion. Pregnant, he echoed, his tone suspicious, not concerned. And you expect me to believe that child is mine after what I've seen you do with other men? She pressed a hand against her abdomen as tears began their journey down her cheeks again. He's not yours. The words were barely a whisper. He stared at her, incredulous. Say that again. She squeezed her eyes shut in shame. It's Sean's baby. For a moment, Eric seemed stunned into silence. Then, a slow transformation took hold of him. Rage, contempt, and a kind of perverse satisfaction mingled on his face. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, another car screeched to a halt. Mandy's father and mother scrambled out, their anxious faces scanning the chaotic scene. Mandy, her father called, rushing toward her. He took in the charred house, Eric's hostile stance, and his daughter's tear-streaked face. What the hell is going on here? Eric offered a sardonic smile. Ask your daughter. She has a gift for creating drama. Enough, Mandy's father snapped. He stepped between them, his posture protective. Her mother hovered behind, her eyes wide with horror at the wreckage. Where is my grandson, and why is my daughter standing in the middle of a war zone? A cruel smirk formed on Eric's lips. Your grandson is safe with me. As for your daughter, perhaps you should ask her about her new pregnancy. It seems we're all finding out interesting things today. Mandy's father's eyes shot to her. Mandy, is that true? She couldn't meet his gaze. The shame was too overwhelming. Dad, I'm so sorry. I've made some terrible mistakes. Eric seized the opportunity to twist the knife. She's carrying Sean's baby, and you want to know why your house is on fire? Because your dear son-in-law finally decided to defend what's left of his dignity. Her father's face hardened with a contained fury. You have no right to keep Randy from Mandy no matter what happened, and you certainly have no right to endanger lives by setting a house on fire. You want to talk about dignity? That's barbaric. Eric stepped closer, glaring at Mandy's father. The older man stood his ground, his fists clenched. I have every right, Eric hissed. I will not let a cheater raise my son. And as for the house fire, that was a statement, not an accident. Mandy's mother, Lisa, rushed to Mandy's side, placing a trembling hand on her daughter's shoulder. She looked at Eric with disbelief. Are you insane? You could be arrested for arson. Eric, this is madness. Just bring Randy back, please. Mandy's father nodded, clearly fighting the urge to throw a punch. Your vendetta won't fix anything. If you leave with that boy, we're calling the police. You're kidnapping him. Eric's lip curled again. Try me. I have enough blackmail on your daughter's affair to bury her in court. Custody, visitation rights. It all disappears once the judge sees the photos, the videos, everything I have on Mandy. No judge in their right mind will grant her custody. Mandy's mother let out a small sob, covering her mouth. Eric, we understand you're hurt, but this is going too far. He let out a bitter laugh. No, Lisa, this is justice. Consider this a small serving of what your daughter deserves. That was the last straw for Mandy's father. He lunged forward, but a neighbor and a firefighter managed to grab his arms before he could reach Eric. Eric stepped back, holding his hands up in mock defense. You want to fight me too? Looks like your daughter's baby daddy already tried and failed. Mandy reached out, her voice breaking. Dad, please, no more fighting. She turned to Eric. Why are you doing this? You weren't always cruel. The man I married would never have done something so merciless. Eric scoffed. Maybe the man you married died in Afghanistan. He certainly didn't survive your infidelity. Before she could answer, he pulled out his phone. You know what? I've spent too much time here already, and my son is waiting. I only came back to see if you'd arrived to witness your new bonfire. Now that I have, I'm leaving. Don't try to follow me. Mandy's father struggled against the arms holding him, his face purple with rage. If you leave with that boy, I swear I will hunt you down. I'll burn this whole county to the ground if I have to. Eric rolled his eyes, then pressed a button on his phone. Almost instantly, a beat-up taxi van pulled up to the curb. The driver leaned out the window. Mr. Black, need a ride? Yeah, Eric said curtly, moving around the small group. Just a second. Mandy, trembling, made one last, desperate plea. Eric, please, I'm begging you. Let me see Randy, or at least let me talk to him. He's only 3. He must be terrified. A flicker of something, pain, perhaps, crossed Eric's face, but it was gone as quickly as it came. He's not terrified. He's with his father, the one who actually cares about him. I'm done talking. Goodbye, Mandy. If you try to follow me, you'll regret it. With that, he slid into the passenger seat of the van. The door slammed shut, and the vehicle pulled away. Mandy watched it disappear, her face a mask of tears, her entire soul hollowed out by despair. The only things left of her marriage were the smoking ruin behind her and the crushing knowledge that Eric had taken Randy, leaving her pregnant with another man's child and with nowhere to turn. Her father placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. Mandy, he whispered, we're calling the police. We're going to tell them everything. She let out a small, bitter laugh. He has pictures, videos, proof of everything I did, Dad. He'll twist it all, show that I'm an unfit mother. I've already lost my son. She collapsed to her knees on the sidewalk, burying her face in her hands, and wept. The world around her felt broken beyond repair. Lisa knelt beside her daughter, pulling her into an embrace as Mandy's father dialed 911, explaining in a grim, measured tone that a child had been taken by a potentially dangerous ex-soldier. The neighbors lingered, unsure whether to intervene or leave. The crackling remains of the house popped and sizzled, thin tendrils of smoke still rising into the overcast sky. In the center of it all, Mandy saw a future as bleak as the blackened beams before her. She had done terrible things, but nothing could have prepared her for the cruelty Eric had unleashed. Now, pregnant by her former lover, shamed at work, homeless, and separated from her only child, she felt a sorrow deeper than any she had ever known. And yet, a tiny seed of resolve planted itself in her heart. I will get Randy back, she thought, tears glinting on her cheeks. I won't let Eric disappear with him. Despite her shame, guilt, and grief, she felt a faint spark of maternal strength. Okay, her father was saying to the emergency operator. Yes, yes, I understand. Please, hurry. He hung up and looked at his wife and daughter. They're sending an officer. We'll get through this together as a family. Mandy glanced at her mother, who gave a tearful nod. She closed her eyes, letting the wave of devastation wash over her one more time. Eric may have incinerated her life, but as long as there was hope, any chance at all, she would fight to get her son back. The confrontation had ended in violence, heartbreak, and a horrifying revelation. But the story wasn't over. One day, she would face Eric again, and on that day, she vowed she would stand strong, refusing to be the broken, helpless victim he expected. No matter how monstrous he became, no matter how many times he threatened her, she would not give up on her child. She knew it would be a difficult battle, involving lawyers, custody specialists, and her own personal demons. Yet, in the ashes of her old life, she found a single, glowing ember of courage. I will get him back, she repeated silently, placing a protective hand over her abdomen, where a new life was stirring. Even if it meant facing Eric's wrath in court or confronting the demons of her own infidelity, she would not surrender. She had already lost too much. She would not lose her children, not to the man she had once loved, nor to the man he had become, a ruthless villain, determined to destroy everything in his path. Sobbing softly, she leaned into her mother's arms. Far in the distance, sirens grew louder. The long road to justice and to redemption was just beginning.